So in a few days' time, we have the highly anticipated autumn statement, or as it used to be called, the autumn budget. And as you can see on this headline slide, no one is safe, and that's what we're going to be discussing in this video. So over the past week or two, we've been getting bits of information about what possibly may be contained in the autumn statement. This is information that has been leaked from the government. Well, I say it's been leaked from the government. What actually happens is the government drip feeds this information to the media, and then they judge how the public responds to this, and then they'll decide whether to include it in the autumn statement or not. So no one is safe, but before I get into that, let's just quickly recap what the autumn statement is. So it's going to take place on Thursday, the 17th of November. Generally, it takes place just after midday. It's going to be delivered by the Chancellor of the Exchequer. And I've got in brackets there currently Jeremy Hunt, as we know how often we've been changing our Chancellor at the moment. So we presume it's going to be given out by Jeremy Hunt. And the core aim of this autumn statement is to reduce the country's annual deficit, which is approximately £50 billion. Now, this isn't to reduce the national debt, which is over £2 trillion. They're just trying to stop making it worse. But they've been saying that since they come to power in 2010, and we're now in 2022. So I'm not overly optimistic about that. Now, like I said, this has been a highly anticipated event ever since Liz and Kwasi crashed the economy with their so-called mini-budget. And although most of the commitments that they made have now been rolled back, a plan to balance the books is needed to calm the market and start to rebuild the UK's economic reputation going forward. So this autumn statement is being billed as Austerity 2.0, as is expected to focus on raising taxes and cutting spending, exactly like the original austerity budget back in 2010 when the coalition government took over after the global financial crisis. So we're expecting lots of cuts to spending and also lots of tax raises. And in this video, we're going to focus on all of the bits I believe are directly going to impact people like myself and people watching this video. So I'm going to be less hung up on things like cuts to the NHS or education or departmental spending. This is more focused on direct cuts or raises that can impact you guys. So let's start off with pensions and benefits. So pensions are expected to rise in line with inflation at 10.1%. And this has kind of flip-flopped over the past week or two whether they're going to do this, but it certainly looks like that's going to be the case now. And the reason for that, they're saying, is due to the triple lock manifesto promise, which means the pension has to go up in line with either earnings, inflation, or 2.5%, whichever is higher at the time. And at the moment, that is inflation. So it looks like the pensioners are going to get a 10.1% increase in their pension. However, the government are considering abolishing this triple lock, as they're realising this is going to cost them an absolute fortune, but they're considering doing it from 2025 when they're very unlikely to still be in power. So it's a very, very convenient date for them. Benefits are also expected to rise with inflation at 10.1%. However, it is politically easy not to do this because people like to blame people on benefits. So if they don't increase people on benefits at 10.1%, for many voters, that won't be a problem for them because they're not claiming benefits, and the way that the media spin it always makes it seem like it's a good decision when actually often it rarely is. And finally, it's unlikely, but the government may consider means testing some benefits. So there's some benefits such as PIP, disability benefits, pension credits, carers allowance, stuff like that, which isn't means tested. Now, I'm actually quite open to this idea. If someone is very rich, very, very wealthy, but they have a particular disability, does that mean they need benefits? For me, benefits are there to help the people that are most in need. And if someone is financially able to look after themselves, then maybe the rest of that money can be used for better purposes, maybe to help out the people that really, really do need that money, who are struggling with disabilities or other things. So although they probably won't do this, if they did announce it, I think actually it's a good thing going forward. So that was pensions and benefits. The next thing we're going to take a look at is employees, which will be probably the majority of people watching this video. I know there's also going to be some small business owners watching this video like myself, and I've got a section for you guys later on in this video, so make sure you stick around for that as well. So employees are expected to face stealth tax rises across the board, and the reason they're called stealth tax rises as the government isn't actually putting the tax up, they are just freezing the tax. So they're expected to extend the freeze on tax threshold from 2026 to 2028. So for another 2 years, your national insurance and income tax thresholds are going to be frozen, which means real world tax increases as your wages will go up but the thresholds don't. So in the current economic climate, you're seeing inflation at 10%. If you're lucky, maybe your wage is going to go up 5%, but all that means is you're paying more tax on that 5% than you would have done if these thresholds had gone up, as you would usually expect them to do so. And number 4, they're considering reducing the 45% threshold, which is the top threshold, from £150,000 to £125,000. However, only 660,000 people actually pay this, so it would only raise a few hundred million. But it sounds very good politically, so they may still do this anyway. And then finally, they may possibly freeze public sector pay rises at 2%. Which sounds extremely harsh when inflation's running at 10%, and the nurses have already announced strikes and many other people have announced strikes as well. So it seems unlikely with that being 8% below inflation, but with this government, I wouldn't rule anything out. We then have housing and council tax, so I've grouped these both together. The stamp duty nil rate has already been increased from £125,000 to £250,000. That was done at the mini budget on the 23rd of September, so that's already taken place. Also at that time, the first time buyer nil rate increased from £300,000 to £425,000. Other than that, with regards to the housing market, no other announcements are currently expected. However, personally, I wouldn't rule out any surprise announcements to do with some sort of newfangled scheme to help the new build developers sell more new build properties. Now, that might not happen in this statement, but I think if the housing market takes the real downturn that we're expecting and have been predicting for the past couple of months, then I wouldn't be surprised to see something in the April budget next year. But we'll see how that plays out. And with regards to council tax, this is currently limited to an increase of 3%, or a local referendum is required. So most councils will only increase up to 3% to save themselves the hassle. And they know most of the time the public are going to vote against it anyway. But the government is considering increasing this threshold or removing it altogether. So I wouldn't rule out big increases to council tax. We then move on to small businesses. So I know there are many small business owners that are subscribed to this channel, and unfortunately I don't really have any good news for you guys. So corporation tax is still expected to increase to 25% come April. Now, Liz and Kwasi did plan to reduce this, but this got rolled back when Jeremy Hunt took over as Chancellor. So it's still expected to go up to 25%. But remember, if you are a small business with profits below £50,000, it will remain at 19%. And I think anywhere between 50,000 and somewhere around 300,000, I can't remember the exact threshold, it is marginal anyway. So you'll be paying 20%, then 21% and 22%. So it's not just a jump straight up from 19% to 25%. And hopefully, if you are paying 25% corporation tax on your profits, you're doing very well with your business and can afford to do so. The next thing is the dividend thresholds are expected to increase by another 1.25%. So your 8.75% threshold will go to 10%, and your 33.5%, I've got a small typo there, will be increasing to 35%, and there's another one above that as well. So that's very likely to happen, as it gives them nice round numbers to work with. It also means that employees think that directors are being taxed more fairly. Obviously, the counter argument to that is we've already paid corporation tax on these profits before we can pull it out, and also we don't get any sick pay or holiday pay as well. So that's why we get a very small tax benefit from paying ourselves with dividends instead of the traditional PAYE route. And the dividend allowance itself, which is currently £2,000, so that's on top of your income, your basic tax allowance, that's expected to be reduced or abolished, which will actually have an impact on some savers as well that do get money from dividends. And finally, I've grouped electric cars into this, as most electric cars are currently purchased or leased by business owners, as it's very cost effective to put an electric car through the business. And they now expect that electric cars will be liable for road tax for the very first time. As more people transition to electric cars, there's going to be a big hole in the government finances. So they have to plug that by introducing road tax for electric cars. And then finally, energy, which has an impact on everyone, that's individuals and businesses. They are planning on increasing the energy cap from around £2,500 to approximately £3,000, give or take. And potentially this may be more targeted as well. Whereas at the moment there is blanket support, this may be targeted to a much smaller percentage of the public. The windfall tax levy on businesses, or should I say energy businesses, is going to increase from 25 to 35% for oil and gas firms, but they're also considering now applying this to electricity generators. So what do I mean by that? Basically renewable, so wind farms and solar, and also nuclear energy. So what the government are trying to do is, if you're making disproportionate profits on the energy you generate, whether you generate it from either gas or oil, renewable or nuclear, you should be paying more tax on that. And they're expected to extend that as well from 2025 to 2028. So hopefully this windfall tax levy will mean more money going into the government, which is more beneficial for all of us. However, will it make much difference if the profits can be offset by investment? So for example, Shell have paid zero tax over the last quarter as they invested all of their profits into new oil and gas farms in the North Sea. So those are the current expectations for the autumn statement on Thursday. If you found this video useful, make sure you scroll down and hit the like button. If you want to see more from me, subscribe to the channel. And if you want to see my predictions for the upcoming house price crash, give the video a watch that I'm going to pop up now, and I'll see you guys in the next video.